This session will be in English, so Borja, Peter, when you want. I think I enabled you to be able to share the screen or something.
Thank you, guys. Can you hear me now? All good?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Excellent. So the title is not very sexy, right? Giving control, privacy, trust. Yet we believe it's a super important item to cover. So I was thinking, Alicia, and I mean, you guys are talking about. It would have been a great chapter to how to personalize using tagging with Web Center, and the next session will be how not to use tagging for personalization. It will be great. It's like the two opposites. And joking aside, I think both things are of course complementary. But today, I'm calling from London. Peter is calling from Rotterdam. Sorry, guys, that this is going to be in English. I'm sure you guys, most of you are used to it. We're not like American gurus, but yet I think you guys are going to enjoy this. So Peter is the product owner of this personalization product that we're talking. But I've got good news. We're not going to talk about our product today. Okay. We're gonna talk about how personalization is changing and how we see and how we are designing new things around a decentralized way of looking into building trust and setting a new privacy paradigm. So one thing was that we've prevented talking about around product. We're gonna talk about how you guys can use privacy and trust as a competitive differentiator, with so that your customers that who we are sick of getting ads, of getting unconsented calls, of being personalized with all sort of banners and stuff without knowing what the hell they know about us, so that we are not in control. So this is a big, big concern. The second thing I wanted to highlight is, so I mean, we are. I don't know if you. Sorry, perhaps I jumped into the topic today. We are the current providers of site search for Vodafone ES. So the search box within the site is powered by Empathy, and so you may be thinking, so why are these guys doing search talking about privacy? Right. So as you guys may figure out, search is highly dependent on personalization. We in order to guarantee a set of relevant results, as well as recommendations on new offers and stuff that actually also uses the search environment, we need to make sure that we understand who is using search. Up until today, we use tracking. We listen to events around the purchase history or the search history or the browsing history or any third parties, okay? And based on those signals, we process them and then we are able to personalize. What is happening today is that the customer requests transparency. They are actually saying, hey, I'm happy to tell you about what my preferences are, but stop showing ads that I'm not feeling comfortable about. So we're moving from personalization based on tracking to personalization based on sharing. Okay, so this is very, very important. There's a shift in terms of brands actually requesting data, zero-party data, or even first-party data around search or any personalization on the site as well. And the third question that I wanted to answer before I pass on to Peter, who will show you some slides, is to do with, so what's in it for me? I mean, I assume you guys are front developers, backend architecture, product owners, tech leads, designers, data engineers. And so you are like, well, why does this matter to me? And so it really, really does. Let me give you an example. I'm a Vodafone customer here in the UK. I don't know if you guys share systems or not. I think you don't anyway, but for instance, if I go into my Vodafone and I get all crappy, offers around new promotions, they have nothing to do with who I am. And then I go into my marketing preferences and I've got everything turned off because, of course, I don't know what data are they capturing, how they're using it. So this lack of transparency is actually preventing me from sharing. So, I mean, how many of you would share your Netflix profile, your Spotify profile, so data is around, I mean, personalization is about sharing. It's about understanding each other. So the greatest way is for me to share those things, to share my interests so that, you can come back to me as Vodafone and tell me, hey, we've got this premium content for you. We hope you enjoy it, because I'll be willing to listen to you guys because I'm sharing that in advance. So all the experiences have to be designed, shopping and the brand relationship of customers with Vodafone, they will need to be designed around the principles of transparency, the principles of controls and explicit affinities. So this is going to go from the simple, banner on accept all cookies to a world where there's going to be no cookies. There's going to be, very little tracking. And I can go on, and tell you stories from customers who actually lost 90% of their customers' data with the iOS 14 update. And I can go on and on and on. We have to accept that we have to stop tagging in the way we're doing it today. Right, I will leave it here. I will pass on the word to Pieter, who's such a talented guy with a vast experience in privacy, and he's going to tell us a bit more about why trust, why privacy, and he's going to give us some examples just for you guys to be able to articulate and to visualize what we're talking about. So thank you for that, guys. We will take questions in the end, of course, if there is time.
Thank you for the introduction. Let's get started. As we already mentioned, in online commerce, the challenge has always been about helping people by understanding them. Because, of course, the better you understand what people want, the better you can adjust your offer. And this is also what we do at Empathy, of course. We try to help. By understanding people, we try to help them finding what they're looking for or help them discover new things. But unfortunately, the notion of understanding by many has been translated into a practice of following and tracking every step that you take online. And the idea behind that, of course, is that the more information you have about someone, the better you understand it, and the better you can predict the behavior. But of course, this approach affects one's privacy, and in our opinion, it's also not the most effective way to provide relevant content for people. So today, I want to talk a little bit about a different approach to understanding, where instead of relying on data collection, we will rely on information that people are willing to share with us. And we will look at the opportunities that this enables and the value that is created, not only for the end user, but also for the business. But before we do that, let's first look at the context, because the better we understand what's happening around us, the more effective we can act on it. And looking at the context of data collection, there are three noticeable developments. First of all, there's a decline in trust, mainly around big tech. As you probably know, maybe 10 years ago, when these companies started to grow, in general, there was a very positive attitude towards these companies. They came out with great products. They were cheap or even free, and they made our lives very easy. At least that was the plan. But in the last couple of years, this attitude has been changing. We now start to see the effects of having a very small group of companies that has so much information about us that they now can willingly or unwillingly influence how we interact with each other. Examples, of course, are the false information that spread around elections or the coronavirus, but also algorithms that are designed to keep us engaged that are now promoting extreme content. And of course, it's not that these companies intended these interactions to happen, but rather that they don't know how to handle them. And then, as Bo already mentioned, as an end user, I have no idea what these companies know about me and how they are using it. The second development, and that's a result of the first one, is regulation. Regulation is changing. So here in Europe, we have the GDPR. In the US, we have the CCPA. And these regulations say like which data we can collect and under what circumstances. And one of the results of these regulations is that having data becomes a liability, because if you get breached, the one that's holding the data is responsible. But also just having the data but without the right consent, that can lead up to a fine. And then the third development, and of course there are more, but these three I would like to highlight. And this third one, which I think is the most interesting, is that big tech itself is now reacting on these changes. The update that Bo just mentioned, the iOS 14.5 update, now explicitly asks to users, do you allow this company to track you? And then what was expected is that like most people now say, no, I don't want this. And for Apple, it's quite understandable that they go into this direction. Privacy has always been important for them, but they are now using it as their unique selling point to differentiate from the competitors. But also a company like Google that's known for collecting and creating a lot of data. They also announced that they're going to block third parties in their Chrome browser. So these developments, they bring, of course, many challenges, and it forces us to take a position on how we're going to deal with these changes. So in the next couple of slides, I would like to share with you two scenarios. One is where we don't act, and the other one where we do act. So let's start with the first scenario, when we don't act. And with that, I mean, I don't mean that nothing is done and we just continue on the same way as we do, but rather I mean that the focus is on complying, so that we stay with our conventional way of thinking and try to see what's possible within the limitations that are set by the regulations, and now also the limitations imposed by companies like Google and Apple. Because also in this new environment, there will always be ways to collect customer data, and the regulations don't dictate that no data can be collected at all. But over time, the amount and the richness of the data will decline. The other scenario is that we don't just act, but we actually embrace this new change. And in this scenario, we assume that we don't get any data. So instead, information always stays with the customer. Data that is generated by interacting with your business is handing back to the customer as well, so that can be used in other situations. And in our conventional way of thinking, this sounds counterintuitive, because not only do we then would give away a valuable asset that is data, but we then also allow people to use the data that they've created with us, with our company, to use it somewhere else, even with a competitor. But if you look at what we get in return, then we believe that it's worth the trade, because what do we get? First of all, you gain trust with your customers, because if you say to your customer, here's the data that we have generated, but it's yours, use it however you want, that gives like a positive feeling to your customers. The next thing is that data can become richer, because if the customer is allowed to hold their own data, but also to combine data from different sources, we can create a more holistic view of this person. Third is that the data will be more accurate. Again, the person that where the data belongs to is the owner of the data. So he or she will make sure that it's up to date in order to best help him to make a next decision, either a purchase or whatever. And finally, it can lead to more access to data because the more control someone has over their information, the more willing they are to share this data. And this is what some call the control paradox. Just saying that the more control you have, the more willing you are to share. Finally, it's important to understand that also in this second scenario of embracement, information will be collected and analytics on how users interact with services can be used to make improvements. But now we make a clear distinction in what data belongs to the customer and what belongs to the business. And in some cases, information belong to both parties. We see that this opens up a lot of new possibilities, but for this to happen, not only must people be able to own their data, they must also be able to provide access to this information. And here decentralization comes into play. And what do we mean with that? At least in this context of commerce, is that instead of storing user data into a central system, for example, in a CRM system, customers have their own private space. And this can be either a private server or even local storage. And in this case, the user becomes the controller of the data. And as a business, you can ask permission to process this information on behalf of the owner of it. And there's already a lot going on in this space. The logos that you see here are all from different companies and initiatives that are building these personal online data storages, or often known as pods, that facilitate these interactions. So the one on the right, the S is for Solid, and Solid is an initiative by Tim Berners-Lee, the founder of the World Wide Web. And they are working on an open standard, and that's the one we are now also experimenting with, that enables the interactions I just described. And it's interesting to see that also, like, bigger companies, even governments, are now exploring this new space of decentralization. For example, in Belgium, some citizens in certain regions are already provided with a pod to interact with their local government. Of course, these are all still pilots, but it's interesting to see how these developments are growing. And at Empathy too, we're exploring this space. But for us, we just focus on commerce. And when it comes to commerce, this enables a new way of conducting business, one where we go from B2C to B2B. So we'll explain a little bit more about that. So in traditional B2C commerce, customers connect to brands, often by creating an account, which then can be used to optimize the customer journey. If you look at the B2B, however, we turn things around and we allow brands to connect to the customer. And here, as explained, they can request access to information from the user to then optimize the experience. Today, we aren't there yet, but we dedicate a lot of our time to explore the new possibilities that are enabled when we embrace this change. So now I would like to show you some of the initiatives that we're working on. First is My Search. Together with one of our clients, a big grocery chain in the US, we started on this project called Purchase History. And then Purchase History allows customers to use their information from their past purchases. Now, we provide them with information about the past purchases to give them insights to do new purchases based on their previous ones. And with my search, we want to take this a step further, where we combine purchase history with other sources, for example, interest. So I'll show you quickly a video and I'll talk you through it. So here we have a landing page of this grocery store. And then if you go to my purchases, you see a list of everything that you ordered. You can sort them, you can categorize them. And this is where we are now with them. So just giving a way to provide insights with their purchase history. But then the next thing that we're working on is combining the purchases with interest. Sorry, this example here, when you go through your purchase history, it's also connected to the catalog. So even if a product wasn't there, it is retrieved from the catalog, and then you can start building your cart. But this is the part that I wanted to go to. Now we can combine it. First of all, you can combine your purchase history with your search profile. So now when you search your catalog, it takes into considerations things that you bought in the past. And you can also decide like how much do you want this to influence your search queries. Then you can also add your interests. For example, my breakfast habits, and it can all be combined into a search profile that's really dedicated to me and which I have full control over. Another example that we built is On My Pod, and On My Pod is actually a pod that we built on the Solid platform, and this is just a data storage that allows people to store personal information, but also to store the search queries to be used later on. And now from On My Pod, new initiatives are born, which we are currently working on. One of them is My Feed. This allows customers to subscribe to feeds provided by brands without sharing any information. And we think this could be an interesting approach to start building a relationship with brands and customers. So think of like now if you want to send a newsletter to someone, you of course need an email address, but with this feed, you can provide this newsletter without having any information from your customer. So we continue to explore these new possibilities, and we do this together with our partners and clients, because by working together, we can best learn and understand how we can create the most value. And as you might have noticed, we are very excited about this future. One where privacy and decentralization are key, but for us, they're not the goal in itself. We merely use these concepts to create better experiences and to create more value for our customers. And on that note, I want to thank you. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Hi, it's very interesting. This is indeed a topic that is now in everywhere. Everywhere you see, they are concerned about these movements of the big ones in the so-called transparency. Okay, but I sometimes wonder that why these big companies like Google or Apple or Facebook, I don't trust them. They are our saviors of the personal data of the users, because historically, you know, they were the opposite. So I am wondering myself if maybe Google and Facebook are doing this because they already have this data without any user consent, and they are the ones that take advantage of that. If anyone but them have the data, they were more on the top of the food chain, you know, so they can send the personalization and be the ones who only they can do this kind of personalization. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think for these companies, they do this mostly out of their own interest. But why I think this is still an important development is that it's because these companies have so much power. So when Apple says everybody has to ask permission to track, it influences all these other companies. So if Vodafone has an app in the App Store, this decision made by this small group of people, in fact, affects like a big company as Vodafone or any other company that has an app in the App Store, affects it as well. And same for Google. And for Google, I think it's even more, at least in my opinion, it's more the case that they do this out of self-protection, but still it influences the way we, the way other companies work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with. We should be careful, about their intent.
Sure.
But in this precise, situation that the big tech has provoked around people not trusting anyone any longer. I mean, you don't trust. This is precisely what some brands are actually using as a way to say, "Hey, I'm different." We all have 3-4 brands we trust that we share things with. So brands in a way, IKEA is one of them. IKEA is all into transparency, all into, hey, this is your data, you can take it anywhere you want. And of course, the next thing they're going to ask is bring more of you to us and tell us about, what you buy in Amazon if you want us to be a better service for you. So the only way to know about your customers truly so that you can be meaningful to them is for your customers to openly share. I mean, forget about tracking and doing the engineering of the device ID with the other ID. And marketing tech is going through a bump, in terms of acquisition. But brands, we're talking about relationship of a brand with its customers. And how can you actually, be different and tell your customers, hey, we are different. We believe in this. This is the data. It's here for you. I mean, we don't actually write it in our own systems. The only thing we know from you is your name, your bill, and your contract. That's all we know. So this is a whole new ballgame, and you need to actually anticipate and start thinking about how I'm going to be, how Vodafone, which is going to be my Vodafone, which is going to be the epicenter of the relationship of customers and brands, how can we create an experience that it's all, around, building trust? So.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting topic for sure. I hope my David will be here, but he can't come at last. But I'm sure that he will see the recording and take care about this, because I think this is the approach I heard about this, because this was like Tim Berners-Lee, as you said, Peter, the approach of getting this privacy issues, for calling it something. But I don't know. There is another. I don't know where the market will be. This is for sure the response of the alternative, the more I like, but the market is thinking about big data, customer data. I don't know how it's called, CDPs or CPDs or something like this.
CDPs, yes, customer data platforms.
CDPs.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. I think the people are moving there too to be able to maintain this centralized data.
That's a very good approach, and this is a key thing to understand. CPDs are a good investment, but the role of CPDs will change in terms of you will not have PII information, like personal linked data. You will have it for insights and analytics with no personalization, just saying, what is my, to detect trends on your customers. So you will use CPDs, but if you want to personalize in a private way, you will need to link those products on those trends in your CPD 2 different pods or different local storage devices. And so I think it will evolve into that. Of course, they will not disappear. They will just change the way they collect data.
Okay.
So
Nice.
anyway,
Anyone?
some people, I mean, we've been talking about privacy for the last year. Some people are like, I don't give a shit. I mean, I will give all my data as long as I get free stuff.
Nah, I
so
actually agree every time. I enter in a website. I'm not lost, you know, like 5 seconds and stop reading it. So I agree and go on and move on. I don't care about my privacy. I am one of those.
Yeah, that's the case. I think many people, and I as well. I also click through the cookies because I just want my content, and that's also why we say like privacy. It's important, but we try to think one step beyond that. It's okay, but it's not just about privacy. You can create so much more interesting experiences, and that's the part that we are now start to explore. Yeah,
for sure. And maybe this will be the perfect way to get rid of those annoying overlays because it's already pre-shared, you know.
And no need to consent. I mean,
No,
this picture of, I mean, you don't have to consent because you are not sharing data. I mean, you are not capturing data. So there is no consent windows. There is nothing. So it's perfect. I mean, you're not annoying people, right?
Yeah. That's like, it's a look like an utopia for me, you know. Yeah, because this is ridiculous. I don't know. Okay, this is a very great chat. Anyone have some more questions? No? Okay, Borja, thank you very much. Very interesting topic. Something to think about, indeed. Okay, we expect to see you another time. Maybe in another 6 months, I will call you again, Borja.
Let's do a recap on this because in 6 months, we will probably have a whole different perception around, you know, how to build, you know, relationships based on trust. So thank you for the invites, Joseba. I mean, I can tell that you have a very, you know, the audience loves you, to say in this way. You have the DJ, the music to set the right tone. Okay, so congrats for that.
The music is something I introduced recently. I think it works.
You have a keyboard behind you, so next time I'll ask you to introduce us with the keywords. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bueno, gracias, gente, por
Thank
venir.
Thank you.
Gracias por venir. Nos vemos en un mes. Así que, chao.
Bye bye.
Gracias, Borja y
Gracias
Pieter.
a todos.
Gracias. Hasta luego.
Chao.
Gracias. Hasta luego.